Okay, we're live. Let's go.
Should we do intros?
Always.
Some intros. I'll start. I'm Reed Jordan, and I am so glad to be doing this again. I've not read a lot of fiction in the last 4 months of my life, 5 months, and yeah, I just love that this was like for young adults too. I'm so excited to talk about this. Like, what it'd be like to be like a 12-year-old reading this book, The Deep. And yeah, it's me.
You want to go?
Sure. My name is Lawrence Bariner II. I don't know why, but I like chugged this book like so fast, and then I got to the afterword, and I don't know who it was. I guess Clipping wrote the afterword, and the second, in the first sentence of the afterword, it says, "You're likely upset that you read this book too quickly, and now it's over."
Yes.
And I was like, "Dang!" Fully got me. But I'm also excited to talk about it. I've actually been reading a good bit of fiction in COVID because it's been helping me survive. Writing a good bit also. But it's really nice to read fiction, to read sci-fi that, yeah, feels like it's proximate to the moment. Like, not that all sci-fi isn't always proximate, but this felt like particularly energizing. Okay, last thing I'll say by way of intro is the song "The Deep" by Clipping actually really got me through June of 2020. Like, I would listen to that song in the shower on repeat, like during the first week of June when uprisings, like when the organizing sort of came to like a head. I was like listening to that song on repeat for like hours. So it was really nice to read the book that came from the song.
Love it.
Lafayette.
Hello, Lafayette Cruz. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like when I first started really taking seriously like the practice of like being a futurist, someone had introduced me to Drexia and The Deep by Clipping. And I was like, aha, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. And I had sort of like I read this back in June. And similarly, it was like, why did I read this so quickly? This was so good. And like, I tried really hard to like be slow, read other things while I read it, so I don't read it so quickly. And I still felt so quickly. And I was very mad at Clipping to be like, haha, you read it too quickly, didn't you? But I feel like this week in particular, like Drexia has been coming up in like conversation and the things that I've been reading. Like there's another rap group that I really enjoy out of Chicago that is, I feel like I talk about them all the time, and they're releasing a new album, and so I got to like early listen. I was like, oh, this world you're building feels like the work of Drexia. And I was reading about New Orleans and like Drexia and sort of Black people in our relationship to water, especially the Atlantic. And so yeah, I'm excited to like dive into this. It's definitely, like you said, Reed, it's made me think a lot about like how I teach about individual and collective responsibility when I engage with like young people, and sort of like the tension of that. But yeah, I'm ready to be sitting in virtual space with you guys and talk about this.
Sweet. Well, let us dive into this. I have no idea what number gathering this is of our Black Sci-Fi book club, but it's like, not a small number now.
It's getting up there.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Is anyone feeling like there's a particular like theme or passage or point of the book really want to like enter into the conversation? Like something that's like, gotta start here, really feeling it.
I'm trying to think of the words. I feel like, the overall question of like what to do with the memory of blackness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what more to say besides like I've been talking about this a lot, and don't know if this book really holds answers, but I do like sort of just sitting with like how do you sit with the reality of our memory and of our history. Yeah, or like I'm trying to move away from history, like history and mythology, or maybe history is mythology, mythology is history, but yeah, what to do with it.
Yeah. I feel like there was like my take on like the early part of the book were presented with how gosh, what's her name? Who's the lead?
Yetu.
Yeah, like how like her experience compared to the rest of the people in her like group, or I don't know what they would call it, their collection, their city, felt like two different extremes of like what it means to sit with these memories. It's like for her, it's so overwhelming and overbearing that she like loses just her sense of self and like her sense of her ability to like understand who she is. It's like that is one extreme, which I think is like which I've certainly seen like with memory and with like holding like lots of historical familial trauma of like someone is like holding on to so much so they're like, who am I within all this like chaos? And like I have so much to hold myself. But then on the other extreme, the other end of like her other, I don't know, group members almost being like childlike and almost like infantilized because they don't have any memories, and so they just like kind of live this happy, like really not really sort of grounded existence, yet also have like no idea who they are and like yearn for these memories at least like once, every however many years in order to like survive. And like neither of those existences feel like a worthwhile or a meaningful or sustainable existence. So, like this is like they found these two extremes because it's the only way they've been able to survive to date. Is like not try to find something in the middle, but like these two absolute extremes of absolute memory loss and holding the entirety of memory. And I don't know. I feel like we see both of those two extremes of like denial. Like in one ways, I saw it almost as like the extreme of not knowing any memory, of like almost like denial, almost like on behalf of like white folks. It's like not how I saw it, of like denial of history and not being able to live with history. On the other end, like just be utterly overwhelmed by it, and consumed by it. But yeah, I was just like really struck by those two, like the two polars of opposites of that, and like where would I want to be, like if I had a choice between the two? And I don't know. Yeah.
I feel, yeah, really curious about this. So the specific moment of annual remembering or the remembrance, like, Reed, you were talking about these two extremes. Like the remembrance is like a period of days where Yetu sort of like, pushes the memory out to everyone and everyone gets to like sort of swim around in it inside this like mud womb for some days, which was like such a fascinating way to deal with the two extremes, to like recreate the womb. And like, the womb sort of showed up more frequently towards the end of the book. So much there. Yeah, but I totally resonate with like just noticing the ways that different people inhabit both of those two extremes in real life. Rita, I feel like we were talking about, like there's people, and I definitely know this happens with whiteness for sure, but definitely also like among Black folks in America, there's like some folks. Oh my God, Lafayette, that was the wildest eye roll. Like, yeah, there's some folks who like really are trying to not remember the lineages of where a lot of Black folks in this country came from. Like all Black people on this continent did not come here via slavery, but a lot of us did. And it feels like I get why people want to forget. And like, especially watching Yetu in the book be like, this is literally destroying me. Like it destroys my body. It makes me almost kill myself multiple times. Like it makes me want to go away for a year at a time and not talk to anybody. Like I don't want to be around sound. Don't talk to me. Like it's too much to remember all this. So I get why, people want to be like the main society of the Wet Genru, just like, I don't want to remember. I just don't. I want to like remember enough to not lose myself completely, like as a member of this species. But other than that, like I don't want to remember. I want to just live my life in bliss. And I feel really curious about like what is there to learn about that way of existence? Like, I don't think we should do that. But like if we were to like grapple with that for a second, like actually what might we get as a identity group if we lived like that? It's like we don't lose ourselves completely, but for 360 days a year, we're like just living life. Like what would that be like? Yeah.
It's funny. It makes me think of just like my understanding of, I don't know, like my childlike understanding of race. Of just being like, we're all different. This is fine. This is great. Jesus loves his little children, regardless of color. And sort of the like joy and curiosity of that, as opposed to like, because like not even just like the losing yourself, but like I think of, there was like the one chapter of one of the like male historians who like,
Pasha,
yeah, and I was
who
like,
was gay?
yes, and I was like, I relate to this. I want to, if I had electricity ocean powers, I would raise our people up to destroy everything. The number of times where I'm just like, burn it all down, flood it all, start over. The flood story makes total sense. Get rid of it all. And like having to go through the process, like, how do I, but like, I also don't want anyone else to have to hold that. And like, I can imagine the sort of just like, yeah, I was just like being like, I don't want anyone else to feel this. We've already, like, I know the memory of the pain we come from. Let me out the like proclivity to martyrdom to protect the family, as opposed to like trusting and sharing, because that's a lot harder. Because the accidental, like, I'm mad. They dropped another one of us in the ocean. Burn it all down. We will, or I guess flood it all. Whatever. It's yeah. because I don't know, there are just times where I'm just like, I just want to exist. You know, I don't want to think about race. I wish I didn't have to care. Like, I saw some like white guy in like camo with a bunch of tattoos. I'm like, I wish I could just see you and let you exist and not be afraid for my life. I wish that's how we could be, but we can't. It would be so nice. Like, I don't want to think about this.
Yeah, um I love Basha, and I love the like experience of understanding like all the historical like historians coming before Yetu and like their different perspectives on like how to carry this history, and that she had these different like models. So it was like Basha, who's like burn it down. There was her like historian who came before her, who was just like very status quo. Hey, we can handle this. Like this is the way it needs to be done. Like the first historian, right? Like learns, like first interacted with humans and like understood, like developed language, like understood context, and like understood how to like create a society and protect people, and like brought people together and like gather them all together and like nourish them and realize like, hey, they can't handle like in their minds like the societies can't handle these memories, so I'm going to hold it all in. um so I don't know, I just love for a moment, I think for a brief moment, to be able to like tap into the collective thinking of my ancestors and like how they've like carried and thought about society and analyzed society. I think it'd be overwhelming with like a brief insight into that would like bring me to another plane of existence analysis. Like tap into like the raw thoughts and emotions of my great great grandma. I don't know if I could carry it, right? Like I like, what would they even feel like? Could I carry that for like a minute? I don't know, but like the thought of accessing that just sounds like incredible. And I don't know, like what a way to learn. um, but yeah, I don't think I'd be able to carry it. Maybe a minute or like 2 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, enough. I'm done.
It does that stuff did make me think. And I guess I also want to say, like, I was imagining, like, when I was thinking that thought about like what would it be like to imagine living like they do in the book. I think the reason I don't actually want to do that in real life is because so much more over time, an increasing amount of my understanding of like the lineage of Blackness in the American context is like, we have intergenerational trauma as well as intergenerational resilience. And like so much of what I'm around these days, like, in my political organizing context, is like people are very clear that for every trauma, we have developed some sort of requisite resilience or some resilience in response in order to survive. So the reality of actual life is that there's just as much resilience as trauma. And so that's what I want to have access to all the time. It's interesting that in the book, my understanding of the parallel, like, obviously it's a story about reality, but it felt like the remembrance, the way it showed up in the White Genru's bodies was like almost all negative. Like it was all pretty hard. Like Yetu was definitely like upset that the remembrance or that the rememberings existed in her body. Like the historians, I guess, I don't know if it's true for all historians. Definitely Yetu, definitely Basha. It was like a negative thing that they had to like sort of try to hold on to themselves in or like destroy everything. And I don't think it's actually that. I don't think it's actually that. Like, I think it is both. We do get the like access to ritual that is life affirming. Like, whiteness doesn't have that. What it does is like remove that. So it's like an interesting thing just to think about the, I don't know if it was like an intentional choice on like clipping and Drexia or River Solomon. Like, I don't know if it was intentional to like only think about the negative stuff, but it was really, it seemed like primarily about the dark stuff. The remembrance was about the dark side of things. And maybe that's because, for the women who were thrown overboard, they hadn't developed the positive side of things that I experienced in my lineages. Like, the resilience wasn't there because it just, like, the thing just happened. I don't know.
I mean, but like like if it is a parallel for that, you see that in like different people and how they think of like their Black legacy, and like maybe because because I just remember thinking that I was like, oh, if you have everyone's collective memory, it can't all be bad. You get everyone's like love and like joy and like humor, but you also get the really really bad. And depending on like, I don't know if any of you have TikTok. There's this Black woman who says these like random phrases. It's like hashtag speak from the heart, be something. It's just like this older Black woman, just very, like I would hear people using her voiceover, and I finally watched one of her videos and like warmed my heart, because here is this like, I don't know, like when I see a Black person who is positive and very intentionally so, it warms my heart. And so I can imagine that there were people who, when they got this memory, whether they were the historian or like regular person in the Zati or the Wajinru, just like they saw the positive and the joy and the things of what became. And there are probably people who were sort of in the middle of just like, cool, I'm holding all of this. And there are people who are like, cool, Basha was right. We need to, why are people not mad? Why are they not taking up arms? Why are we not burning this all down? And I feel like, yeah, I would be interested in like, what is the different historians like take on this moment? Would they be overwhelmed by it? Or like had well, it seemed like if had Yetu continued, she would have died. But like, would she have grown past, like, would her way of viewing the memories have changed with time? Because yeah, I mean, I feel like my relationship to the Blackness and like thinking about my ancestors has changed with time. From like, I don't really think about it. We're all different. The Power Rangers are all different colors. We're in a better world now. To like, I don't like white people. To like, cool, there's a lot here and I have to sit with it all. I am very grateful for my ancestors surviving, but also the trauma that they must to endure to have like now passed on to me. I'm very grateful that they like knew how to dance. That is, or like responded to the rhythm of the universe. I am very grateful for that. But also there are other things in response to trauma that I wish they had like not passed on. And I don't know. I just like I kept forgetting Yetu was supposed to be older, because in my mind I felt like her relationship to the memories felt very young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a very, I'm sitting with what both of you are saying and thinking more about like the way she approaches the memories. It is a very young way. Maybe that's part because it's a young adult book. It's like, I need to push all this away. Like, this is bad. It doesn't feel good. It needs to be pushed away. Get far away from me as I need it. But I think thinking about resiliency, I think like there's both, like memory has both of those. Like, yes, there's trauma that's caused, but then also we've developed patterns and habits of resiliency. But I also think some resiliency comes about directly as a result of like how we relate to history and like how we relate to trauma and like how we learn from it and like this orientate ourselves towards it. And as I'm thinking more about like how she experiences it, it is very much like a zero sum. Like this is so much. This is overwhelming. I can't get anything from this. I can't be myself from within this. Like I need to push it all away. That yeah, I guess it is someone who's young. It speaks to someone like a young audience about how they might react to things that are overwhelming. So I guess like the book does get to a point where going towards the end, they are better able to like integrate these memories and like have ways of collectively sharing them and analyzing them and like sitting with them as a collective that's healthier. And so it does like present ways of like holding this stuff. But I do think, as you're saying, like you're saying Lawrence and Lafayette, like I think regardless of like the scale of the trauma or the scale of the hurt, like there's so much to be learned from it. And I wish like that had come through a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, I have a topic change, but Lafayette, is there anything else you want to say?
Oh no, I was just thinking about to my eye roll, but then also like I loved how queer it was.
That's what I was gonna say next.
Okay.
Let's go to this queerness. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Basha, super. I don't know if I want to say subtle. It just like wasn't a major feature, but it was like I love that making like being physically intimate with another member of the community was like part of Basha's way of processing or of like being with the remembrance or excuse me, being with the memory, being with memories. Which in my mind is like a parallel to like there's so many reasons why people have sex, one of them being like to just deal with hard things, to like connect with each other and be like we can hold each other, we can create pleasure for each other in the midst of a hard thing. And like that was a big theme in Octavia Butler's work, like
yes,
in the parables, in the Xenogenesis trilogy. Sex is like all up in there. And yeah, so I appreciated that as a theme. I appreciated that Basha was queer. It felt like a real important point that like eventually Yetu and Uri, you know, like love is a part of their thing, and that's part of what helps Yetu like go back. It's not fully what makes her go back because like Uri like leaves and that's sort of it for them. Or you know, at the moment that Yetu goes back, you know, sort of it for them. But anyways, I love that love was in there, and I appreciated that both of the love stories were queer love stories.
Yeah. It and so like one level is like cool. I like appreciated sort of just like the reminder that like queer love stories have existed throughout time, and that there were societies and are societies and places where it is just normative and expected and like it's not not, I don't know if they would categorize it, but like not categorized in the way that we are. But then also just like, so going back to like ancestors is just like, in people have always found love, and that sort of gives me hope and excitement and like, cool. In the midst of slavery, my ancestors found love, whether they were able to stay together, whether they were separated, whatever the trauma, they were able to find love and pleasure and comfort. And even my like queer ancestors, whoever they are, were able to hopefully find that. And yeah, and it's I appreciated the way that Yetu and Marie's sort of like relationship to their family also interacted with their love. Because I don't know, I feel like personally I've just been thinking a lot more of just like, what is the role of the extended family in, whether biological or chosen, like what is the role of the family in individuals' intimate connections and like relationships? How do you view your family and your history and your memory? What are you trying to connect me to? What am I trying to connect you to? Yeah, I know, but I loved it. I was like, I wish I had this book when I was younger.
Facts. Just like casual queer love story, like casual queer love integrated into the story.
Yeah,
it wasn't about that.
Yeah, it's just, it is.
It just is. Yeah. One other thing I was going to say about that is I was so appreciative of the way that like, oh my gosh, what's the way to say this concisely? I'm about to tell a long ass story, so I'm gonna pause myself and like think of a way to say this in like 2 sentences or less.
And I've got to run.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, grand cycles. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Do you want to give a lasting, a last thought?
Lasting thought. The other thought I was just going to throw in that there's so much here around like meditation and mindfulness and about being present and like how to integrate memory and thoughts and like be in a swirl of distraction, motion, yet come back to yourself and come back into yourself. That I just love that young people are like stealthily introduced to that concept through this awesome book. I'm just like, this is so brilliant. But yeah, I'm really sorry that I have to leave early. Hopefully it won't happen again. But whatever we do next, you know, if you all want to choose the book, I will read whatever.
Yeah. Okay. You'll be missed.
You'll be missed.
Enjoy.
Bye, Reed.
Bye, Reed. So I was thinking an interesting thing about Basha and Yetu being queer is that I feel like in many indigenous societies, it's often the queer ones, the two spirits, who hold like really important intergenerational positions.
Yeah.
So like the medicine people, I'm learning in many communities were like often the queer ones or the ones who sort of were able to embody many types of energy.
Mm.
And so it felt great that Yetu was queer, that Basha was queer, that like, right, there's like, not only is it a part of society, but it's like a very special part of society. And I think there's a way to look at that was like, oh, it's actually a really hard part of society, like to be the historian is like actually the worst part. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's how the book portrayed it, which is what it is. And I know that as I've like tapped into like healer or like healing lineages, it's often the queerdos who are out here like holding space for people to access healing, so that the society like can hold itself together.
It's been, I think one of the things I appreciated was sort of focus on ancestry and ancestors and memory. Because I think similarly, I've been trying to do work as like white Christendom came to the continent and came to other cultures and translated the Bible to say ancestry worship is like this evil, wicked thing. And so I was raised with like, oh, thinking about your ancestors is wrong. And having to like go back and be like, no, 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 no. First off, I don't think that's what this book was saying, but also like, I don't know how much I adhere to it. But like, how do I tap into the sort of energy and wisdom and like life that my ancestors put forward? And then beyond that, understanding that like I am not like a queer anomaly in the history of humankind or the history of my family. And there are ancestors who have, like I said, experienced love in the face of white supremacy, love in the face of uncertainty, love in whatever sort of context they've lived in. And the way I see the world isn't absolute or normative. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in the moment of reading this, like, cool, how do I tap into like the remembering of my ancestors? What is the work that they did for their community? And what is that sort of guiding me to do for my community? How am I helping free us from whatever the forgetting, I don't know what the opposite of the remembering is, but like, what are we forgetting that I can help remember?
Yeah, there's a line pretty early in the book. I said like forgetting is not the same as healing.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so good.
I do remember that line.
Yeah, and like what does it mean, or what's possible when, say, those of us, at least you and I who are queer, who have maybe lost access to queerness in our lineages, like we're not connected to it directly via story or relationship. As we remember that existed, what does that give us in terms of, as you said, sort of life direction or orientation or purpose? How does knowing that existed, how does remembering that existed support us in things we're doing now here?
Yeah. Huh. Also, I don't know. It made me think of the like Yet to a Real Life Story. Made me think of Shape of Water, but like more interesting. Actually, I can't say that. I never watched A Shape of Water, but
Like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I found like Uri, and then I can't remember the little girl's name.
Dang, I also can't remember it.
Yeah.
Taya? I'm gonna look it up. You keep thinking.
Okay. But I just like their caution, but like hospitality towards a strange creature. It is, I don't know what I was trying to say, but just like, it is, I don't want to say it was a wild animal, but like looking at like different cultures' relationship to strange things and to like wild animals. Like I was telling my sister, like I love seeing Black people with their animals on TikTok because I feel like the way they relate to them is so different than like white people on TikTok. You know, like white people with their animals. And like similarly, I'm just like the way in which they found a strange creature in the water in like multiple instances within Wajinu life, a historian has come across another Black human, and they've somehow seen something familiar in each other and taken care of each other for whatever time they interacted with. I don't know if that's like a lesson I want to sort of like, yeah. It's like both like a lesson I hope I embody that like whatever I come across, it feels safe. In whoever I come across, they feel safe. But even just thinking of like how different peoples come across and enter new communities and new spaces, and whether they see difference as a threat or difference as something interesting, but not something to be like destroyed. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes me think of two things. Like, one is a thought on grief and animals, from a book I just read, and the other is, yeah, very much in the lane of, yeah, how to treat, how to always find something connective, even in the midst of a lot of difference. Like how to always find something that connects you to a being, human or non-human, when you show up, or like when you meet. Like, yeah, I deeply wish that that was more of what people's default was. Like, in a world where unfair hierarchy and competition are global assumptions, because mostly of the spread of global capital, or of like consumer capitalism.
Yeah.
In that world, difference for sure is seen as a source of conflict or need for destruction. But it would be sweet if difference was like, okay, this exists here, and I'm gonna immediately, instinctively move towards the thing that makes us similar, as a way to anchor the conversation about the things that make us different.
Yeah.
Like, I would love if that were more of the norm. I don't know, is that too much to ask? Like, whiteness definitely can't handle that, but there's lots of, like, it seems like many other, I guess there are also other societies, other cultures that have handled difference as a threat. That's,
Yeah.
super real. Whiteness is the most globally expansive one, so that's the one that I feel most concerned about. But it's not the only one. As I read more like Indigenous history books, there are many folks who are like, stop talking about us like we're all collaborative. Like, we're not.
We're all hippies, peace loving,
No,
just like the magical Indian.
it's like, no. It's like, no, we had wars. Some of us were competitive, some of us were collaborative. There was conflict inside of our communities. Like,
we're human. Conflict is
yeah, totally. Like, part of the reason that the transatlantic slave trade was able to be so successful was like warring tribes, like people who were really trying to subjugate each other. So, like, that's anyways, that's like a flat story, but I do really appreciate, and I think it's those cultures, societies, groups over the long run that will survive and improve our likelihood of survival as a species, those are the ones that are more collaborative than not. I think we have a story that competition is the way to be supreme, but I think that's a false story. Okay, the other thing I was going to say, damn it, what did I say? I know I mentioned it.
What was you were trying to think of a story and how to shorten it, but I don't.
No, I said that one. That was about the historians all being queer.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it was about the grief thing.
Oh, yes, with animals.
Yeah, so I just read this book called The Smell of Rain on Dust by Martine Prechtel. He's like a Southwest native writer on this continent, and super good book, very just outside of my norm.
Okay.
And one of the chapters, say what?
I'm writing it down, but keep talking.
Oh yeah. One of the chapters is about animals and how pets actually, like the history of pets. And the way he tells the story is that when a community that was a hunter, or when a community hunted an animal, if they killed an animal that was a child of, excuse me, if they killed the adult parent of a young animal, the community would adopt the young animal and caretake it as a way to honor the life that they had taken to sustain their community.
Huh.
So like bears and like jaguars and like tigers, you know, he says this in the book, monkeys, and you know, part of where that came from was like, you know, in earth-based cultures, the idea of reciprocity is much more normal. So there's no way to like take something from somewhere without giving something back.
Yeah.
And so if you take a life as an adult, you have to give life to the child who would like, it no longer has the capacity to be held. And part of what happens is like part of what that balances is like the grief of the killer, like the person who killed the animal, the grief that exists when you kill something needs to be tended to. And one of the ways that it got tended to was by caring for this child. And so like that, some people like, you know, like, so if that's like one of the roots of pets, domesticated pets, like, you know, there's like many lineages that flow out from there. But he says in the book, like there are people who tend to their pets in a similar way to this original orientation. Like it's obviously not the same because we have fucking puppy mills and like we breed pets and like it's fucking sick. And Martine talks about that in the book. He's like, this is trash. All y'all are trash. This is like so toxic. And there are some people who relate to their pets like as beings that actually help them hold their emotions. And they tend to them in ways that can be beneficial in that cycle. There's also ways that it's super dark and like we sort of project or like put many of our negative feelings into the animals, and then we're like super surprised that like all these dogs have cancer and like all this toxic shit. You know, like this is his, you know, his indigenous way of understanding what's happening with that. So whether or not it's like scientific is a separate question, but I resonate with the like, there are some people who treat their animals differently. And that's like not a joke.
Yeah.
Or it's not like, it's not an aberration.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that. I just,
It's interesting, right?
Yeah. Because I've been, I'm trying to think if I want to go on this tangent. Especially in light of our Lex Luthor wannabe Jeff Bezos shooting up into space, and sort of this like recent fascination with UFOs and like life outside of Earth. And there's also been this sort of, I think it was a James Baldwin quote of just like, there are people who trying to go to space to conquer the moon, and there are other people who like dance in front of it like an ancient friend, of just like questioning like people's ability to recognize life. Because I spent a lot of time sort of thinking about, there are things in the ocean that have lived for centuries. There are trees that have lived for centuries. They have a birth, a death in life, and they relate to their kin in a way. Like a mountain, even though it doesn't look like it, was born and is dying. There's lots of life in space, but we don't have the capacity to recognize it. Like the birth and death of a star is a life cycle. It eats, it consumes, it grows, and eventually dies. And I don't know if for us as we experience time, if going out into space in search of life is useful when we can't recognize life that is before us. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, because even just like reading this, the joke in my family is, I feel like it's a joke that came from the internet of just like, stop exploring the ocean, it's terrifying. But I'm just like, I don't know how we would react if we came across the Zoti, the Wajinru. Like, how would we react? Like, it'd be very cool to believe that we have kin that survived the Middle Passage and created a society underwater. But I don't know if we are ready, if we would ever be ready to meet them, or at least we're not at this moment ready to meet them.
I mean, not meet them and keep them alive.
Yeah. So, like, we have a hard time recognizing life in humans, but I'm not sure
other
if we can recognize. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know why people are looking for life elsewhere when we can't recognize what's before us. Also,
avoidance.
I'm also like, the planets live for billions of years. Anything that travels through space has to be long-lived. What on earth makes you think that you're ready to do anything to life outside of this planet?
Hubris. That's what.
Yes, there's a whole lot of hubris,
and that's what that is.
But yeah, the deep.
Yeah. We've been talking for almost an hour, so I feel like maybe we should. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. No.
Unless I'm like.
No. That seems right. I'm just like, it went by really quickly.
Always goes by so fast. So I'm wondering if there's like, final thought from each of us, and then we can sign off and then pick our next book.
I don't know, other than like, and I feel like I've started, like, since Africans have been brought to this country, there have been scared white people saying we need to go back to where we came from. And I remember people sort of saying that for me and being like, I am a product of like, my ancestors are African, indigenous, and European. Like, if you want to send me back anywhere, then you need to chop me up and put me in the middle of the ocean. Because like, your conceptualization of race do not make sense. You have to divide me up. And just like the world of, I don't know. Earlier today, I was reading about Drexia, and I was like, that's how I'm going to identify. If people want to send me back anywhere, send me to Drexia. Send me to the deep. That is where, like, if you're trying to send me back anywhere, that is where I emerged. And like, yeah. I don't know. I find like I enjoyed this book in the world of Drexia, of just like, this is a new mythology to add to where we are from. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of the thoughts.
Yeah, I like the work of making people get clear about where someone should go back to and why.
Yeah.
Because it's like most people who are saying that like also aren't from here.
Yep.
I was like, cool, I'll go back if you go back.
Like my ancestors have been here for centuries too, so go back through Ellis Island. Exactly.
Or, you know, your unofficial way of getting here. Like, I'll go to Africa if you go to Ireland.
Yeah.
If you're not going, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to share was just near the end of the book, there's a line where Yetu is talking about the comb that she found. It's like page 109 in my copy. She found the comb and she's like, oh, there's these markings on it that I thought were one thing, but they're actually another thing. And Yetu's Amaba said, it's easy to do that with the past, even with the blessing of the full visions of the history. Yetu saying, I misinterpreted. And Amaba's like, yeah, it's easy to do that. And I just appreciate that simple insight of like, right, even if you have all the information, it's easy to misinterpret. It's easy to bring your own lens onto something and assume you know what it is and not totally know what it is.
Yeah. Love that.
So that's what I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
do we want to end the recording and choose a new book, or do we want to save that for another time?
I think we want to end the recording and choose a new book.
All right. Bye, recording verse.
Bye, recording verse.